I think there are probably ways that you are a perfectionist in your life and they're really holding you back. Whether it's trying to be the perfect mother, the perfect parent, the perfect friend, the perfect employee, the perfect child, the perfect student. But I feel like I see perfectionism manifest in a bunch of different ways for a bunch of different people, and all of them end up being pretty destructive. But what I've noticed in myself is that identity, I'm a perfectionist, it's really a shield I found to protect myself from this great thing I fear, failure. And I also realized that once I stopped identifying as a perfectionist, I got a lot more stuff done. And I started feeling a lot more fulfilled. I want to share a couple of tips, mindset changes, and practical steps, things I changed that really helped me to become actually more productive, more fulfilled, less burdened. I think this can benefit a lot of people. It might be you, there might be someone you have in mind, but it's just something that I've wanted to share for a while. This video is made possible by Roborock, and I'll share more about them later. I think we can all be perfectionists in one or multiple areas of life, and maybe not in others. If you talk to my tech coworkers, they would say that chick loves to cut corners. She's got no problem with mediocrity. But if you've ever worked with me on a YouTube video, I can be quite a perfectionist and quite unreasonable. Personally, I'll share that some of the flavors of perfectionism I struggle with are in my work, knowing when to cap it off, knowing when it's done, knowing when it's good enough. And the other thing I personally struggle with is I would describe as like a moral perfectionism. This idea of like sinning, failing people, doing something wrong. And that actually, it hasn't made me a more moral person. That's not to say that I'm like a more moral person or that I mess up less. And that's kind of the thing about perfectionism, is that it actually doesn't amount to perfection. Never once in the history of the universe has perfectionism actually led to perfection, because imperfection and failure are just guaranteed parts of every story. So it's really like this Sisyphean tragedy to be constantly telling ourselves, but only if I could do it perfectly, but only if I could be the perfect friend, but only if I could never mess up. Because it won't happen. Let me spoil it for you right now. That story just doesn't happen. So the number one thing that has helped me is to first identify for myself that perfectionism, the tendency of perfectionism, is really just anxiety, a nearly paralyzing fear of failure. If I could just do everything perfectly, then I could erase all chance of failure. If I could just never be a bad friend, then a friend will never leave me. If I could just never put out a mediocre video, then people will never stop watching. If I could just be the perfect child, then my parents will certainly love me. So I think I found in myself, at least, I often want to take this identity of perfectionism. That's like a powerful badge of honor I can wear about like, well, I just have a really high standard. I'm a perfectionist. But really what it is, it's like a fun way to disguise the fact that we're just super afraid of failure. When I find myself really procrastinating on making a video or writing a script or something, it's usually because I've decided in my head that this video matters so much. It matters so much. I put so much weight on it. And so the stakes of messing it up seem even bigger. It's even harder to start then. So I think first identifying what it really is, it's not that I'm so superior and I have a high standard. I'm extra afraid of failure in this arena. And then secondly, it's been really helpful to name for myself, as I will name to you. It's okay to make a move that maybe flops or even make a mistake, and then decide it's okay for me to just choose to learn from that mistake. Man, I really messed up with that friend. Man, I really messed up with my sibling. I really made the wrong call in a video. Saying outright to yourself, it's okay for me to just choose to learn from this. Because the reality is there is not a day when we're no longer learning. There's not a day when you're no longer growing, no longer evolving from your mistakes. That day doesn't exist. So if you're holding out for a day when there's nothing left to learn and there's no ways left to improve or to grow or to do better by people, the day doesn't come and your life can pass you by. It's okay to just continue to learn. This I just started doing recently, and it's like changed my life. I've started keeping a note page in just on my notes app on my phone. The note is titled "Things I Thought Would Matter But Didn't." This is really helpful for somebody with high anxiety, high guilt, high shame, and perfectionism. For example, it's helped me a lot in dating. I have this feeling that like I have to date perfectly. I have to say everything perfectly. I have to do it right, say it right, and show up right. Not gonna happen. Not gonna happen. I'm not doing stuff right. But when I was first starting to date, I definitely had this feeling of like, if I send them one text and I've like misworded the text, I'm screwed. It's over. And I'll really spiral on that text. And I wish I could do anything to take that one weird text back. I didn't even mean that text. Why did I write it that way? It's caused all this confusion. And so I just started adding it to the list. Things I thought that matter, but didn't. And when I add it to the list, it's a question. I'm still high on anxiety. I'm high on guilt. I'm high on catastrophizing. I'm certain that this is gonna end everything. And then you just wait. This is the key. You wait. And that perfectionist voice, anxiety, guilt, whatever it is super loud in your brain, but you just don't act on it. If you can just take the time to give a waiting period and see, did it actually end up mattering at all? It almost never does. The things you think matter so much often don't end up being remotely the thing that mattered. And like we know that looking back, but it's been really helpful to write it on a list and have a catalog and be able to see patterns in the things that I freak out over, obsess over. Like, okay, it really does feel like this matters, but historically it never freaking has. What it really highlights is this facade of control, I think is what perfectionism is. This idea that like, if I just control everything that happens during this family dinner, it'll be a good family dinner. But the truth is that I don't control things. And I actually don't even know what's best for everyone. Or you're organizing an event and I need this to be the perfect event and I need nothing to go wrong, I need nothing to be bad, and the hors d'oeuvres have to be this or else nobody's gonna like the party. Add it to the list. And what happens in time is that the party goes well regardless of whether I got those hors d'oeuvres secured, or the party goes badly for reasons that had nothing to do with the hors d'oeuvres. The things I thought would matter are almost never the things that actually matter. So it's been really nice to keep a log of that. I really recommend it. Things I thought would matter but didn't. It's a long list. One of the most important lessons that I think I've learned only as an adult, and it's been a painful lesson, is learning where I am comfortable cutting corners. And it turns out there's actually lots of places. Where am I comfortable getting a B? And where are the areas where I need to get the A+? Because you do not have infinite time, nor do you have infinite energy. Both of these resources are limited. You do not get to put 110% effort into every single thing you do at all times. There's not enough hours in the day. This lesson of like learning where you're comfortable getting the C+, it's been one of the most important lessons I've learned. It's just not something they necessarily teach you in school. And yet I find it being so centrally crucial to a professional life, to a life where you have so many different worlds happening, family, friends, partner, social, work, spiritual, and you just won't be knocking it out of the park all the time. What's that saying from Sex and the City? It's like you can never have both an apartment, a good job, and a boyfriend. Sex and the City had it right, and I feel like it's true. It's like I never have every single of these areas of my life intact all at once. It's like we're cycling through them. There's this toxic phrase I cannot stand that I've heard going around a bit, which is like, the way you do anything is the way you do everything. Give me a break. Give me a damn break. It leaves no room for humanity, no room for learning, no room for recharging. It's an absolutely obscene notion, in my opinion. Even at work, if you are obsessive on certain assignments where you're really not gonna get a lot of return on your investment, it can drain you and take your time away from where you actually need to be putting in work. Maybe I'm investing in a business right now. I'm starting the business. I wanna get the business 110%. I'm probably not being like the most present sister I've ever been, probably not being the most present girlfriend I've ever been. These things will trade off, and I don't think it's about having everything at an A+ all the time, everything in perfect balance all the time, but being comfortable cycling through where are you putting the spotlight of your attention. The way you do everything, the way you do anything, I'm gonna, please kill me. I just disagree, and you can disagree with me, but it doesn't change the fact that you have finite time and finite energy. Also, by the way, today's video is sponsored by Roborock, which is funny because I feel like one of the ways that perfectionism and obsession has definitely manifested for me and for some people I know, is in your home. And they've made a lot of great products that have made it possible for me to relinquish control a little bit better at home. Roborock makes robotic vacuums and dry wet cleaners. I have the 𝐄�絵𝐄, which mops my floors without me even being there. First of all, I will never mop my floors, even if I'm there. My dark wood floors that show every speck of dust. So I'm kind of obsessed with these guys. He kind of feels like my pet, and when I come home, I'm like, hey, what are you up to? Sometimes he's cleaning. When I go on vacation, my home stays clean, sparkling clean. If you're looking for an all-in-one solution, this is it. I've seen the way that taking care of your home obviously can become an obsession. It can be a really nice thing to take pride in because your home is your home base, but it can also be something that just drains you and drains the people around you. I first got the 𝐄𝐕 product for the mopping capabilities. You know, it's like a self vacuum, yes, but I really wanted it for the self mopping because otherwise I'm basically not doing that in my home because I don't have the time. It's also really nice when you go out of town. Your home doesn't have to be collecting dust and filthy when you come back. You can come back to a spotless place. So that is very, very nice. Mopping, vacuuming, self-cleaning, it just means that I have to do so much less in my home. I've said this a million times, but interior design is not just about decorative throw pillows. It's about the design of your life and setting up the systems that make your life doable, make it more livable, make it more enjoyable, and also make it easier for you. So I want this super spotless, clean home, and I don't want to be laboring all the time. So this is like one of those systems that just gets you closer to the life you want to be living. It comes with this multifunctional dock. It's like a 5-in-1 dock, and it just like self-auto cleans all on its own, so you don't have to be involved in maintenance and all that. It cleans the mop, auto drying, auto refilling the water tank, auto dust emptying. All happens in this one little dock. It's like pretty cool. It's pretty chill. It also comes with a super easy to use app, so you can like set the cleaning routine where you want it to clean regularly. The main reason that I got the 𝐄𝐕 is for the mop feature. It has dual like spinning mops underneath it, and they will like detect carpet. So when it gets over a carpet, they raise and it doesn't touch the carpet, nothing gets wet, so it can just kind of go everywhere. It's kind of amazing. Technology these days. If you feel like this is a good solution for you or your home, your cleaning routine, I'm gonna put more information about it in the video description. There's a link you can click to check out more about the 𝐄𝐕. And thank you to Roborock for sponsoring today's video. They're keeping my house clean. Gives you back a lot of your day, a lot of your time that I'm no longer A, cleaning the floors, or B, refusing to clean the floors because it's a lot of work, and then just like being sulky about it. Sweet. That's it. When you find yourself in a moment where you're procrastinating, there's this thing you're putting off, it's a work assignment or it's a school assignment and it's so important and you want to do it perfectly, so you couldn't start because you didn't have the perfect idea, you didn't have the perfect structure, you didn't have the perfect thing to implement, so it hasn't happened and now you've got nothing and the paper's due tomorrow and you're kind of screwed. When you see that process happening, this is what you're gonna do. You're gonna set a timer on your phone for 5 minutes. You're gonna sit down and do 5 minutes. And what usually happens is that, of course, you usually end up going longer than that. Or maybe you just do 15 minutes and you take a break and then you come back later, you do another 15 minutes. But it's so much better than doing nothing. As you procrastinated, the obstacle that you have to overcome has grown bigger and bigger because you're failing at it more and more. So now there's more you have to overcome. There's a shorter timeline you have to do it in. It becomes just a greater and greater monster. And the hardest part of doing the assignment is thinking about doing the assignment. The hardest part of doing it is just thinking about it. And so the key is to stop thinking about it and just get your body doing something physical. Focus on the physical steps. The physical steps of setting a timer for 5 minutes, opening my computer, titling the document, writing my name on the document, writing one single bullet point. Just do the physical steps. Stop thinking about how you're gonna wrap the whole thing up. Stop thinking about how you're gonna ace it and get a perfect score. Get something on the page, do 5 minutes. Something else I do, I live and die by to-do lists. My mind is chaos. Everything has to be in a list or it doesn't exist. And so when I'm feeling really overwhelmed with a to-do list for the day, it sounds silly and stupid, but please start with the smallest thing. Start with the smallest thing. Let's say my to-do list is like, charge my phone, call my mom, go on a 10-mile run. Even though some of those are so obviously smaller and easier than the others, it still in my head feels like 3 giant things I have to do. Please, please, for the love of God, start with the smallest thing on your to-do list and start checking off the list and ride the high of checking those little babies off the list. Sometimes I like to even write unnecessary things on the to-do list just so I have the pleasure of checking them off. These are semantics and they work. What it really does is it's building momentum. It's starting to chip away at that like invisible beast of procrastination. It chips away at it little by little, it starts building momentum in you, and then you use that momentum to then do the bigger thing of going to run the 10 miles. Finally, I talked before about embracing the fact that failure is just a part of every human story. It just is. And usually what we think is a failure isn't really a failure. You know, it's a hardship maybe or an obstacle, but it's most often really not the end of the road, at least in the way that we think it is at the time. And something that has massively altered how my brain is able to see those moments while they're unfolding live is immersing myself in human stories. One of the things that helped me the most is listening to one of my favorite podcasts, How I Built This. I've talked about it a million times on here. It follows the stories of different founders of various innovative industry disrupting companies. They're just human stories. And once you've listened to 50, 100, 200 of these stories of these people who found immense success, you see the pattern of how all of them had like 100 failures along the way. Hundreds of tiny failures. You see it happen over and over and over again. And it's true for all of our stories. So it's helpful to see that echoed over and over in other people's lives. And then it feels easier to not freak out over failures as much when they happen in my own. It's just part of the story. There's so much more to say about perfectionism and how it really is, I think we wear it as this badge of honor sometimes, but it can just be paralyzing. It can just like keep you from a fulfilling and productive life. So if the topic resonated with you, I hope there's some points that felt constructive, some actionable things you can incorporate into your life. If the video makes you think of somebody in particular, I hope it can be helpful to them. Perfectionism at work, in your family, with your relationship to exercise, your diet, whatever it is, there's a million ways where we feel like if we don't get it right, it's not worth it. And it's a tough way to live because there's no endlessly getting it right in any of these areas. So I hope that you can feel a little relieved from that. It's something I'm like constantly working through, but some of these mindset changes have been really helpful to me. If there's things that have been helpful to you, obviously feel free to leave it in the comments. I love to see people's tips and suggestions in the comments, or like resources and stuff that you've loved that have been helpful. I need a snack. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you next week.